Get this meeting started. This is the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. I'm Councilmember Weezer. I've been joined by Councilmember Englander. And we'll start off on item 11, the Director's Report, if there is any report.
Hi, I'm Mike LeGrand, Director of Planning. No report today.
Okay, thank you. So if we could go to item number 2.
Sure. Item 2, Councilman, is a motion, Weezer Garcetti requesting that a report be prepared relative to underutilized industrial and manufacturing facilities.
Thank you. And item number 2, what we will do is refer to the Planning Department for inclusion in the Recode LA's Downtown Development Code. If I just want to make the department aware of that, we're going to refer to them so they could include it in their review of the Downtown Development Code. We don't have a public card, so we'll refer that to staff. Item number 7.
Number 7, Councilman, is a zone change ordinance for the construction of 53 units in CD10.
Okay, we'll approve that on consent. If there are no objections, move that. Seconded by Ms. Englander, so ordered. Okay, item number 5.
Item number 5, Councilman, is a zone change ordinance again. It's for the construction of an 80-unit hotel in CD2.
Okay, do we have staff here on this item, please? It's 5. Just a quick overview on this project, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Jordan Turner, Department of City Planning. Before you use a zone change from TQ RES4-1 to TRES4-1, basically a zone change to permit a hotel along Victory Boulevard in the San Fernando Valley. The Planning Commission approved a conditional use and site plan review for the project. Revised T commissions have been submitted to the committee, and the small change is just to delete dedication requirements along a couple of local streets and just to have the applicants do the repair and improvements for the street in lieu of the dedication.
Thank you very much. The applicant, Robert Lemishaw, you're okay with as provided? Okay. Jim McQuiston.
Jim McQuiston. My comment is in the record now. I'm not here opposing the project. It's just the process is completely wrong. As I explained in my statement, I won't go into that publicly, but anybody can read it if they want to off the record.
Okay, thank you. So with no objection, we'll move this item. And does this have a council date? Or is it, this is final action? This is the final action, correct?
Yes, it is. And the council date will probably be prior to the recess, April 1st.
Okay. Thank you. So ordered on item number 5. No objection. Item number 6.
Item 6, Councilman, is an ordinance for a zone change and a building line removal for the construction of 20 single-family dwellings on 20 individual lots in CD12.
Can we have staff present a quick overview of this? You okay? Consent? Okay. Well, hold on. Well, let's just move this item. There's no cards, no public speakers. Moved by Ms. Englander with no objections, so ordered. Item number 6. Item number 9.
Item 9, Councilman, is a communication from Councilmember Corretz relative to updated findings for a height variance project at 360 North Stone Canyon Road in CD5.
staff here on this? Okay. City Attorney, number 9.
Good afternoon, Council. Jennifer Tompkins, City Attorney's Office. We're here today to comply with an interlocutory writ in the matter of Lazaroff v. City of Los Angeles. The interlocutory writ commands City Council to clarify ambiguous references to evidence supporting September 10, 2013 findings made by this committee in support of a variance request for 360 North Stone Canyon in the community of Bel Air. By way of background, in or about 2002, the real party in interest here, Gabi, sought a variance request for the construction of a single-family residence. The ZA denied the request, and a series of hearings were held on his appeal before the West LA APC and this committee. Following a public hearing on November 10, 2014, this committee moved to grant the appeal and approve the requested variance to permit a height of up to 50 feet subject to conditions. Council agreed with Plum on consent and adopted the findings as recommended by this committee. The neighboring property owner, Janice Lazaroff, filed a lawsuit challenging the findings. Earlier this year, the Superior Court, Judge O'Donnell, ordered council to revise its findings to remove evidence in the findings relating to the declaration of an engineer. To ensure that council has complied with Section 1227K, Judge O'Donnell ordered the city to remove the references to that declaration and instead cite to evidence that was before the ZA, such as topographical maps, evidence from the applicant's representative, site maps, and other similar documents. A copy of the proposed findings is in the council file. They've been presented both in red line form and the clean copy, as well as a copy of the original findings. And we request your action consistent with the court's order and request that you approve the revised findings. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad DeVarian.
Good afternoon. Brant DeVerne from Lewis, Brisbois, Bisgard, and Smith. I'm here with Shelley Sloan and Nicole Martin. We represent the applicant. The city attorney gave you the background. I believe that's all before you is the revised findings. And essentially what we did is we had a declaration from an expert that summarized what was in the record. The court objected to that and said they wanted the actual evidence. So we took out any citations to the declaration, and we went in there and added from the record, from 2 binders full, picked out the relevant evidence. Some of them are plot plans and stuff, and we cited to the evidence this time, and that's what's before you. So what we're asking you to do at this point is to approve the revised findings. There's a red line version of the findings. You can see the exact changes that were made. And then with that, I'll submit, and I'm here to answer any questions. And I appreciate your time with this matter.
Great. Thank you. Sean Bayless from Council District 5.
Good afternoon. Sean Bayless, Councilmember Paul Koretz, Planning and Land Use Guy. Simply put, presented for your consideration are the revised findings for the height variance at 360 North of Stone Canyon Road, per court-issued interlocutory writ in Lazaroff v. City of Los Angeles. To ensure that council complies with Section 12.27K, Judge Joanne O'Donnell ordered the City Council to remove the references to the Liston Declaration from its decision and replace those references with references to the evidence that was before the zoning administrator, such as testimony from the council, site maps, and other similar documents. So per the judge's order, we've worked to excise the Liston Declaration from the findings, citing instead to the evidence before the zoning administrator initially, such as topo maps, site maps, plans, the applicant's variance initial request, the testimony before the zoning administrator, and those such items. So we'd ask that those findings be amended and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's here? Oh, I didn't see. Okay. Okay, well, with that, we'll move this item and adopt the revised findings and send to full council. With no objection. Second. No objection by Mr. Englander.
Any cards, Councilman?
We just went through the cards.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
The appellant is not here, or
Oh, that was it.
okay.
All right. That was it. So we'll move that to full council. So ordered. Thank you. And we will, on item number 10, we will note and file, receive and file. That action is no longer necessary. We'll go back to item number 1.
Okay, item 1, Councilman, is a joint report from Building and Safety as lead. It's requesting funding for the Build LA Year 1 project.
Righty. Staff here on this item?
I believe that the mayor's office will present the report, Councilman.
Okay.
Hello, good afternoon. Kevin Keller, Director of Planning and Housing Policy with Mayor Garcetti. Very pleased to be here today for this important milestone for Build LA. This has been a very collaborative effort with the leadership of the committee today and with all of our development service departments that are all neatly seating in the first 2 rows on your right. We have the Department of Building and Safety. We have Ray Chan, General Manager here. We have Director of Planning Michael LeGrand, Chief Vidovich from Fire, and we also have Bureau of Engineering, ITA, the CIO, I will look at them all, but Fire, did I miss anybody? Sanitation, and DOT, there's Tom Carranza, here to present this. Basically, last spring, this committee and the council adopted a roadmap for development reform. And the Build LA project is perhaps one of the most important pieces of this process, and we're glad to be back this spring to move forward on it. It is basically to create a single citywide technology platform to enable better development services and improve the efficiency, transparency, and predictability of the development process. Our departments worked for many months on functional requirements. They generated business case analysis, system designs, and completed the request for proposal process. Build LA will be funded by existing and future revenues by the Construction Services Trust Fund. It's important to just take a couple minutes on an overall look at what this capability of this new software will do for us and for the city and for the development services as a whole. For the first time, users and city managers alike will be able to see real-time information as to where their case is in the process, with online project status, timeline information, making services more accessible. You can see who's working on your case, what are the next steps, and target dates for project review and completion. It'll also help us streamline our review with performance measurement capabilities that we don't have today and integrated workflows across our departments. For example, we now route paper files between our development service departments. With Build LA, we'll be able to instantly route these files digitally to really cut down on processing time and also streamline collaboration between our departments. There will be cost efficiency and savings from consolidating our hardware across these departments, and moving forward, this should lead to much more improved and efficient development services. I just want to take a minute and really thank all 5 of our general managers that worked together to sign this report in front of you. That's really a rare and unprecedented thing. It's a new day with our development services departments working together to integrate their systems, and we're just delighted to be a part of it. So this is an urgently needed improvement. Today is just the funding step. There still is the contract negotiation, the contract award, and then the actual development of the software solution itself. And in your reports, you'll see that's about a 26-month process. But we take the first big step today. So I am joined by all of our representatives from our departments. We also have Jason Colleen from the CIO here for any questions on the report, and just want to say thank you for the council's leadership on this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Englander, any questions, comments?
Yeah, just if you can come back real quick. I appreciate it. This is coming a long way, and one of the things that I care a lot about in terms of the transparency of the entire process from soup to nuts and customer service, how this works with not only developers but also, quite frankly, the general public, so they can track what's happening in their own communities and neighborhood councils and the like. It's so important. Not only the transparency but the efficiencies and the clarity that we haven't been able to provide in the collaborative effort. This is putting away or sort of earmarking $22 million towards that effort. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are going to come out of this. Some of the automated video systems that have been talked about in terms of walking people through phone and chat and online services from YouTube, and a lot of the things that are talked about, discussed in here. My guess is that this is phase 1 building the system. And like building a car, then it needs fuel and service and everything else to go along with that. That's the ongoing cost, the maintenance and operation of a system like this. Although I think in the scheme of things, and looking at the totality of the system, which I'm fully behind, looking at what we've done technologically in this city with other programs, oftentimes the wheels fall off the bus, as we saw 20 years ago from first set of the payroll system that came on to just even more recently with the new DWP billing problems. That has been really a horrific nightmare for everyone, and particularly all their customers. And so a system like this, which relies so much on technology as well, although, you know, right now we are cutting edge 1984. I get that.
That's about right. Yeah.
And so we've got to get out of those days and get into the modern age without question, and this collaboration will allow us to do so many things. Is there any cost that has been identified and outlined as, okay, year 3 hits, we're talking about moving 98% out of the construction services fund now to fund half of this, earmarking and updating another percent for the fees over the next 7-year sunset to pay for the next 3-year implementation. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's going to be ongoing. We're going to be paying for it for 4 years after completion out of that. There isn't money identified in year 4 to figure out, okay, we've launched the system, now to turn it on, to hit that switch, to take it around the lab. It's another $5 million, $10 million. What do we have an idea of what that means? How long is this contract for? What are we buying?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll hand it over to Jason. And generally speaking, this money is purely used for vendor costs.
Correct.
We also have existing, most departments, maybe Jason can explain, most of our departments do charge system development fees as a percentage of their cases. So we do have the ongoing revenue at a staff side to maintain it. That might need to be tweaked and adjusted depending on how much it costs to maintain the system. But the real hurdle has been the upfront costs of the overall construction. Maybe I can hand over to Jason from the CAO to maybe walk us through that.
Good afternoon, Council Members. Jason Kleen with the Office of the City Administrative Officer. We're anticipating ongoing costs of about $2 to $3 million that would be absorbed by the department's existing systems development accounts and systems development funds. The Bureau of Engineering, the Department of Building and Safety, and the Department of City Planning all have existing systems development accounts which are supporting not only staff but their existing legacy systems. As we retire those legacy systems and staff transition over to support Build LA, those costs will be shifted over to the Build LA project. We're working with the Department of Transportation as well as the Fire Department on a fee structure to support their systems needs. So we anticipate an ongoing revenue source to support the ongoing maintenance for Build LA, utilizing existing revenue streams.
Okay, so, and thank you for answering that. And then lastly, to ensure from a risk management perspective and looking back on some of the things that we've deployed, particularly when they're proprietary systems and we're creating them based on our needs, oftentimes they don't have modulars that we realize halfway through, oh, we've got to add that piece was missing. They're not seamless. It's another $1 million. We keep throwing more money at it. And hitting the benchmarks to ensure that we're meeting the timeline. Is there some assurity and responsibility on behalf of the vendor for producing those benchmarks and reaching those objectives? Have we outlined that, or will we be doing that as part of the contract? Because typically in technology contracts, we don't do that. And so I'd like to see that done in this case.
Yes, sir. Staff have already factored that into the phasing process. In attachment 2, you'll notice that the phasing structure has 2 months there for staff to actually develop the phasing plan to work with the consultant that will be factored into the contract that will tie compensation to specific benchmarks. What's before you today is actually the core system. There are a number of departments that would like to add additional features and modules that will be consistent with the Build LA platform, and as we identify either revenue streams that the city is currently bringing in or grant funding, we'll add those modules.
Okay, yeah, I figured that we're going to see more modulars coming in, and that's usually the case. So I'd like to see an instruction, if I could, to add to this that during the contract negotiations, that those benchmarks are actually part of the contract, that they are held and the vendor is held liable for reaching those, and some type of language and agreement, and as well as the rollout. So when it's switched on or moved over, it doesn't set us back, because if things don't work as planned, we actually test it and roll it out, as opposed to what we've done in the past, and have that as part of the contract as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's okay. I'm good with it, with those changes and suggestions.
It's fine. Thank you. Go to public comment now. Ezra Gale, Jeffrey McConnell, and Samantha Beasley.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Ezra Gale with the Building Industry Association. We'll keep our comments very brief. We're so proud of the city to see the collaborative process that's led us to Build LA, and we're very excited about the possibility of this type of integration and interdepartmental cooperation. So we wholeheartedly support this program. We think it's a very positive step forward towards transparency and clarity in the building process, and thank you for hearing it here today.
Thank you. Jeff McConnell and Samantha Beasley.
If it pleases the chair, I'll take the time of Samantha Beasley as well. Jeff McConnell, board member of the LA Chamber of Commerce. Build LA is essential for moving the city forward with development reform. Reform which has been promised for far too long and is a key initiative in building more housing faster to address our housing shortage. The city's development community has stated time and time again a willingness to accept a small increase in fees in exchange for a faster, more dependable development review process. This system will enable electronic plan submission, one master permit number across agencies, and automated workflow to expedite the review process. Residents will also gain access to more information about projects in their neighborhood and will be better able to permit their own home improvements from the comfort of their own couch. The city will have a powerful new tool to track the efficiency of the city's land use process and will further its goals to reduce greenhouse gases and paper use. City inspectors will have greater access to detailed information about projects while they're in the field.
So your time is up, and
We applaud the city for taking the first crucial step toward Build LA. Thank you.
Thank you. Samantha Beasley? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. This wraps up this conversation. I just want to thank all the departments who have cooperated in making this possible. I also want to thank the mayor's office and my staff who have helped move this along. As many of you know, this is one of three main development reforms, along with Recode LA and the realignment of development review functions that we've all been working on to improve our development processes here in the city of LA. And creating Build LA was one of the main recommendations from the Matrix report finalized in 2012. So we are moving along with this in a very focused and serious manner, and I want to thank everyone who helped us get us to this point. I do want to clarify a few minor issues if staff is mayor's office and or staff as well. Just to be very clear, what is the timeline for getting this project started and completed?
This is Kevin Keller with the mayor's office. The report in front of you shows a 26-month timeline. That is when we sign the contract. So we want to make sure we spend enough time now to really iron out that contract and not race and sign that contract today. But once we sign the contract, it's a 26-month process.
Okay, so that's a 26-month process. And what about our customers and our clients? How will they be involved in making sure this is getting to what their needs are?
Yeah, the Development Services Department's created a number of user cases where we modeled a number of likely scenarios that we had the vendors walk through. Once those scenarios are developed, there'll be testing, both with internal city departments and also with kind of focus groups of users. We do intend to thoroughly use test this before it's rolled out. I think we've learned that we didn't want to cut any corners on that part of the contract as well. So we will do a number of focus group user tests, as maybe even having some workshops and feedback from our departments.
And who will maintain the Build LA, just so we can be clear on that? Maintenance.
Build LA maintenance? It is a collaborative effort, but the lead department will be building and safety. We're also working with ITA in terms of things like hosting and routing and where those actual files are saved. That's something that's going to be developed in the contract, but it will be the main contract will be through building and safety. In terms of usage of the system, building and safety will use approximately over 70% of the system, with city planning being the second highest user of the system. But that being said, the development services does touch, for example, the fire department. It's not their primary in terms of their overall staffing, but every single building permit of a certain type does get reviewed by fire as well, so there are other critical users in there, but building and safety would be the lead.
Great, thank you. So with that, I will move that Council approve the requested Year 1 funding for the Build LA project, that Council instruct the CAO to earmark additional funding for Years 2 and 3, that we request the City Attorney to draft an ordinance to increase the construction services surcharge from 2% to 3% for a period of no more than 7 years. 4, instruct PBS in conjunction with the other relevant departments to negotiate a final phasing and compensation plan with Acela, and not to exceed 3 years in the amount indicated in the report. And 5, your amendment, Mr. Englander. And I'd also like to keep abreast of this implementation. If we could get quarterly reports to this committee from the CAO, that's possible. Okay, great, thank you. So with that, no objections? So ordered. Thank you very much. Next item is item number 3.
Item 3, Councilman, is a draft ordinance from the City Attorney and a CAO report to add new fees for the conditional use permit unit in the Planning Department.
Okay, thank you. Before you do your presentation, Councilmember Bonin is here to speak on this item. Mr. Bonin, would you like to speak now or after the staff presentation?
Good afternoon, colleagues, members of the committee. Thank you. I was just down the hall at the minimum wage hearing where there's an incredible economist catfight going on right now, so it pained me to leave and come here, but this is an issue of enormous importance to me. This starts from a motion or a conversation in last year's budget process where I believe Mr. Koretz and I were concerned about the lack of enforcement of conditions on development here in the city of Los Angeles. We have had here in Los Angeles for way too long, particularly acute in my district and in other places on the west side, a culture of phantom enforcement, where we have a long and exhaustive public process where neighborhood councils and community leaders spend hours and hours painstakingly coming up with conditions that would make a development suitable for their neighborhood, worthy of their approval as a body or as individuals. People, developers, land use attorneys spend God knows how many billable hours working on these things. And then we make a mockery of that process because we then do little to no enforcement of the conditions. It causes, in many cases, extreme pain and hardship on neighborhoods to have conditions not enforced. Some of them are conditions that affect quality of life. Some of them are significant conditions about affordable housing requirements. And this is a step in the right direction in making sure that when we go through an exhaustive process and we and a developer or an applicant make promises to a neighborhood and to a community, that we fulfill them and that we do our part in making sure that they are fulfilled. So the planning department put together an ordinance that comes up with a fee structure so that they can actually have a robust and effective condition compliance unit, which I'm vigorously in support of. I actually think we could go a lot bigger and a lot stronger, and I have some other proposals in the hopper that we'll be pursuing as time goes on. This is a great step, and I just wanted to come here today personally to urge you to approve this and move it forward to council because we desperately need the relief. And I want to thank Mr. Legrand and his staff for their work on this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Bonin. Mr. Englander has a comment for you.
I just wanted to thank you as well as you're walking out the door. I know you're anxious to get back, and I'll be quick. We've essentially turned in the enforcement of conditional use permits into almost a citizen-run, local enforced volunteer mechanism that is very difficult, where we get folks have to complain We have to then verify the complaint. We don't have a check and balance to go out to the facility, to the site, to the operator. And then once they're so knee-deep in it, we've got such a bureaucratic process for allowing them to try to cure it. It needs to be a check and balance. If they promise they're going to do something up front, they should do it up front. And we've never had that ability. So I applaud your efforts in this. This has been frustrating citywide, I think, in all of our communities. When this first came out, I had some concern that, is this yet another inspection and delaying getting a CUP or opening a business? And in fact, it's not. It's exactly the opposite. It's to make sure that they did essentially what they said they were going to do, and that they become good operators. In fact, on the flip side is if they go through and try to get modifications later once they've been in operation for a certain period of time, we then have a track record to say, look, in fact, you've been a good operator. We could probably even waive public hearing. And so it's a win-win for the community, the operators, and business as well. So I appreciate all the work and hard work you've done on this.
Thank you. You're a man of great wisdom, Mr. Englander.
So you've told me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Bonin. Staff, quick presentation.
Good afternoon. Jason Kleen, Office of the City Administrative Officer. Before you today is a draft ordinance by the City Attorney, which addresses the fee study that was done by the CAO's office last August, which was approved by the Council as well in August of 2014. Before you today is a request to add 7 position authorities to the Department of City Planning to actually implement the proactive monitoring, verification, and inspection program, also known as MVIP, which will work hand in hand with the Department of Building and Safety's Code Enforcement Bureau. With me today are representatives from Building and Safety, City Planning, as well as the City Attorney's Office if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go to public comment now. Chris Farber, Marie Rumsey.
Councilman, my name is Christoph Farber. I'm the Director of Business Development for Grand Central Market. I'm here today to lend our support to the creation of a faster, more efficient method of CUP condition creation and oversight. We would like to thank the Departments of Planning and Building and Safety, and in particular, Condition Compliance Supervisor Rocky Wiles, for their efforts to simplify a process that has been bad and gotten worse. Finally, while we do support this effort, we would also ask that the execution of these changes continue to be considerate of the often delicate timing and costs associated with opening a small business such as a bar or restaurant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marie Rumsey here on behalf of Central City Association, and we submitted a letter along with the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce and VICA asking that this item be continued until some incentives are built into the program. I think everyone agrees that enforcement and monitoring are important of conditional use permits, as well as operations of establishments. But what we'd like to see that, along with this new $2,500 fee, are some carrots to businesses. So I think the program wants to get there. I think the operator rating system is a step in that direction, as well as the standardized conditions of approval, but we'd like to see that more fully vetted. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay Handel, Sarah Blanche, Margaret Taylor.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jay Handel. I'm here as the chair of the Budget Advocates citywide. 3 years ago in our white paper, this is exactly what we asked for. Did this happen? We have had an unlevel playing field in our community forever. You would not have our police department policing our city with 15 people. That's exactly what we're doing with conditional use permits that we cannot enforce. It's not fair, it's wrong, and quite frankly, I'm shocked that VICA and anyone else would want to stall this process, because truthfully, this process doesn't go far enough. This should be all conditional use permits, because if you can't enforce it, it shouldn't be on the books. So the reality is, this is a great beginning. I urge you to move forward with it as we did 3 years ago in our white paper that all of you have been privy to, and the sooner the better, because it's time to take the community out of the enforcement of CUPs and get the department back into it. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Sarah Blanche, and I'm here as a Venice resident, and I want to speak in favor of the funding of the CCU. As Councilmember Bonin pointed out, it is hundreds of hours of work for a variety of stakeholders. I've seen our neighborhood council. I'm involved in the work there. They put a lot of time into crafting these conditions. I think, as you've expressed here, there's an understanding that those are not subsequently enforced. And as a resident, we're at a place where in Venice, traffic, there are terrible issues. Parking, there really are difficult issues. And particularly with all the new development that's been slated, it's really, really important because it feels like we've been at a place where business owners' interests outweigh residents' interests, even those residents who have been there for a couple of decades or more. So really grateful that steps are being taken to fill this gap. It is a very necessary action, and furthermore, the funding through putting a nominal fee on these alcohol businesses to start makes a lot of sense. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Margaret Taylor, Kevin Michael Key, and Tiffany Burgess.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. Margaret Taylor, Apex LA. I'm a land use consultant. We handle a lot of applications that come into the city. In my view, this is progress. I think the Condition Compliance Unit has been acting in good faith. They've been very responsive. They have worked with us to try to help facilitate compliance. And we have good operators that want to be in compliance. So we're in support of the work that they're doing, not only this measure, but all of the improvements that they're doing, trying to standardize conditions and have adequate manpower and resources to be available to us and to the applicants who are trying very hard to comply, but it's not necessarily currently easy to do so. So we'd like to support the efforts of making it easier and more compliant-friendly and business-friendly community. We think it's good for the neighborhood. We also think it's good for business. And we hope that it proceeds in the same attitude that's been done so far.
Thank you. Kevin Michael Key, Tiffany Burgess.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or gentlemen. Councilman Weezer. I live and work in Skid Row. I work for United Coalition East Prevention Project. We're funded to do alcohol and other drug prevention work in Skid Row, which is part of Mr. Weezer's district. We support this ordinance. We decry the oversaturation in many communities that are heavily impacted by alcohol and other drugs. And so we're advocates, and very often we go to hearings, and as somebody indicated, I think it was the city representative, how there will be voluntary conditions agreed to. And it's been our experience, and I actually go out in the community and monitor these outlets, that very often these voluntary conditions are submitted because they know they're not good. There's nobody to enforce it, so having enforcement is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Tiffany Burgess, Barbara Brody, and Jim McQuiston.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Burgess, and I'm representing the Institute for Public Strategies. We're a nonprofit organization with over 20 years of experience in environmental prevention. We work with communities around the country to improve public health safety and quality of life by reducing alcohol-related problems. According to ABC's guidelines, almost every census tract in the city of Los Angeles is oversaturated with alcohol outlets, in some instances by 2 to 3 times what is recommended. A great deal of research links oversaturation to a range of community harms, including violent crime, traffic crashes, and nuisance activities such as littering, loitering, vandalism, and noise. An enforcement division like the CCU has been proven to lessen problems associated with oversaturation by holding operators accountable and working with them to understand the conditions on their licenses. It can be an investment that saves our community and resources in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Huizar and members. Our community, Westwood, south of Santa Monica Boulevard homeowners and our West Side Neighborhood Council both strongly support this initiative, as do many community neighborhood councils that are not listed on your agenda today because the council file number was changed. Their motions disappeared in the paper history. We find this to be already a very important unit within the planning department. The cooperative agreement with building and safety addresses some of the issues that were raised in the review of building and safety and planning already. The fee structure is not prohibitive, it's cost recovery, and unless there's another way to pay for it, this is the only way it can be done. We cannot have any more delays. We request that you pass this on to the council now, and if there are individuals or groups that feel that more work needs to be done, that can be done with advisory committees that you can form. We appreciate very much this opportunity, and we think it's time to bring credibility back to government, and this will help to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim McQuiston, Steve, San.
Jim McQuiston, since before I was born, the municipal code said that the Department of Streets shall tell the people, the property owners, to fix their sidewalks. Shall. The charter right now says that neighborhood council shall monitor the performance of the city departments. So we do have an enforcement group, let's say, or groups, which no one is enforcing right now. I'm very concerned about getting the neighborhood councils to monitor the performance of the city services and the street services to start sending out those letters immediately. Let's hope that some of our active things on the books are enforced because they say shall.
Thank you. Steve?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairman Weezar. My name is Steve Sand. I'm the chairman of the Westwood Community Council, and I'm also a member of the RAC, the Westside Regional Alliance of Councils, which is made up of the 13 neighborhood and community councils on the entire West Side. Our community council voted to support this. I know that our Westwood Neighborhood Council has voted to support this, and I wish to also inform you that the Westside Regional Alliance of Councils voted this issue, the enforcement of conditions, as one of our 3 highest priority urgent issues to bring to the attention of the city and the mayor and the council for this year. It is an issue that touches our entire region, but it touches the entire city. It touches communities that often don't even get to come to these hearings. The issues of alcohol enforcement have very significant effects on communities, whether they are on-site or off-site, liquor stores or restaurants. This is such a reasonable proposal. As Mr. Handel stated, it really doesn't go far enough, but it is the first step, and we respectfully request that you pass this with all deliberate speed to give our planning department some of the resources, not all, but some of the resources they need to enforce the conditions that they impose. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you all very much for your input and for your hard work on this for some time. I know this was brought to us some time ago, and now it's moving forward to become a reality. I do have a couple of questions for staff, and first is there will be a review at the beginning and at the end of the CUP process. Now, we're trying to get to enforcement, but how do we ensure that this does not create additional time pressures on those individuals who are applying for CUPs?
Rocky Wiles, Planning Department. The review that happens at the beginning of the process actually will shorten the processing time, because what we're finding right now is that there's a lot of red flags that show up at the very end of the process that delays opening, of these businesses. So that fee and the time that it will take to perform that function is 2 to 3 days. Will hopefully save weeks at the end of the process.
Okay, and one of the issues that was brought up before in Plum was the impact on small mom and pop businesses. Now, I understand there's a tiered fee structure. Can you explain that a little bit?
It's not a tiered fee structure. We looked into that, but we couldn't make that work. And I don't know if did you want to do that tier? We try to do that based on square footage, but it's not something that we were able to do. We had to apply a fee to everybody equally.
So the small mom and pops, there was no tiered system. I thought I read that was going to be implemented. That wasn't in the ordinance? Okay.
No, yeah.
So it's just a fee applied to everyone across the board?
Yes, because the function is it's the same for everybody. We still have to do the same amount of work.
So it's the same amount of work, doesn't matter how big or small the business will be? Okay. Yes. In your guys' opinion, do you think this may negatively impact small businesses?
I think that in the long run, we're going to see an improvement. I mean, right now, everybody is I don't want to say everybody is a bad operator, but we don't really have anything to base it on. So at the end of the day, I think these small mom and pop stores may be able to grant it longer terms, instead of 5 years, maybe 10 years, because they are operating in compliance. So I think that you will see a savings. They will see a savings. Also, for these small establishments, we can do plan approvals on site instead of having them come back in and spend $6,000, $7,000 to do that condition compliance. We can probably do that on site. And right now, that fee, according to this ordinance, is less than $800. So I think that there will be savings both in time and fees for the smaller businesses.
Okay. Thank you. And last but not least, we discussed an operator rating program previously. What is that exactly?
Well, and this is still something that, we'd like to work with different industry groups and different operators to see how we can implement this and how we can come up with a good rating criteria. But basically, it will be based on how well you are complying. So if you have one or two conditions that you're not complying with, for example, and you comply within 48 hours, that could be a rating of an excellent operator versus somebody who chronically violates the conditions. That would be obviously, not so good of an operator. And these are things that could be taken into account when they come back. The decision makers can then look at these records that are going to be very objective, and rather than, a neighbor or, people calling in. It's something that we will do proactively.
Okay,
put on the
thank
record.
you. Any other questions, comments? No. So we'll move that we approve the city attorney ordinance to establish the pre-construction fee and approve the CAO report requesting authority to hire up to 7 positions to staff the unit. And also, I'd like a report back on the operator rating program. If you could, if planning department is willing, I know you're stretched with a number of issues, but if you're willing to meet with stakeholder groups to see how we could work with a proposed operator rating program and report back to Plum, and my staff will work with the department on what appropriate time that is, how much time you need for that. And finally, in that process, just if we could, I think this was a very good discussion overall, given the other development efforts that we're having on making this bit more efficient, but keeping some accountability to the public in enforcement and other matters like that. So anything that you find with respect to that, recommendations you may have that we could discuss in that report back would be great too. Okay, great. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
So ordered with no objection. We'll move to full council. By when?
Mr. Chair, the CAO report that requests personnel is also referred to Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee. So our committee will coordinate with personnel and come up with a council date as soon as personnel acts on the CAO request.
Okay, and my staff will work with personnel to try to get that scheduled as soon as possible as well with your staff. Thank you. So ordered. Next item is item number 4, correct?
Yes, item 4, Councilman, is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a proposed general plan amendment to adopt the Plan for Healthy LA.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Claire Bowen, City Planning Department. We are very pleased today to be presenting to you the Plan for Healthy Los Angeles. It's the first health plan the city's ever done. It's part of the general plan, and we were very fortunate to have support for this plan from the county Office Department of Public Health. They got a community transformation grant. We also had support from the California Endowment for Public Outreach. I'm actually going to turn it over to you for a few moments to Lauren Grabowski, who was embedded with us as part of the consultant team, Ramey & Associates, who helped us develop this plan.
Thank you for the introduction, Claire, and good afternoon. This plan has been made possible through many, many key community leaders. It's an honor for me to step in and play even a small role in this important plan to facilitate it through the approval process. The purpose of the Plan for a Healthy Los Angeles is that although public health is something that is already highlighted through existing policies and programs, it's an opportunity to identify gaps as well as to provide support for those existing plans and programs. Through the earliest stages of the development process, the plan has been part of a comprehensive effort, including a community advisory committee of 40 key community members, and leaders, a technical advisory committee consisting of 40 members of city departments and other government organizations, as well as an expert panel of key health experts. As part of the earliest phases of the process, a health atlas was developed. This was a data-driven analysis of health issues and health outcomes in LA. The health atlas produced 115 maps which analyzed these health outcomes. We included 2 maps for your reference, which really highlight one of the most important lessons learned from the health atlas. And that lesson is that health in Los Angeles lies in the neighborhoods where Angelinos live, and these neighborhoods influence their health and well-being. So on the maps you can see that for the hardship index, most of the maps highlight how the health inequities and disparities are concentrated in certain areas, including Southeast LA.
Just a quick question.
Of course.
How do you define Southeast Los Angeles here for the city? I've heard the term a lot for the county. But
Sure, I would like to reference
the city.
the map.
There's east side and there's northeast,
Sure.
but then there's south, but southeast is somewhere in between.
On this map, Southeast LA is identified by the community plan.
Okay, and the community plan is okay. I was just curious. I'll figure that out later. Okay. Thank you.
We can discuss that later. And the second map indicates childhood obesity and the health inequities related to that, while typically citywide there's a 25% childhood obesity rate. The map indicates that in some areas it's as low as 11%, while in other areas it's greater than 1/3 of the population. The Health Atlas helped inform some of the goals and policies that were developed for the plan, as well as the robust community outreach that was conducted. The community workshops were clustered in some of those areas where health inequities were the greatest, as indicated by the Health Atlas. The plan is structured with 7 goals and policies supporting each of those goals and an implementation program. The 7 goals are listed before you. They include social equity, the built environment, parks and open spaces, access to healthy foods, the environment, education and equity, and safe and just neighborhoods. We also identified key policies that can help support these goals. The purpose of these policies is to serve as tools to guide the decision-making process and when making decisions about developments and programs. Finally, Chapter 8, the implementation program, contains 88 programs that will support this plan. Some of the programs include existing programs that are already being worked on, including Cleanup Green Up and the Quimby Ordinance Update, business attraction programs, the Clean Air Action Plan, as well as new programs such as the Urban Forest, Cool Roofs, street vending, healthy neighborhood markets, and urban agriculture. We're asking that this commission recommend the plan as the City Planning Commission has done. Any additional questions?
No, thank you very much. Now go to public comment. Mark Glassock, Ava Post, Tara Cola.
Good morning, council members. My name is Mark Glassick, and I'm the Director of Special Projects at the LA Neighborhood Land Trust. Very excited to be speaking in front of you today in support of this very important plan. As outlined in the report, there's a 12-year life expectancy gap within the city of LA. Just for context, that's equal to the gap between the United States of America and North Korea. So this is a real pressing issue for the city of LA, and we see that at the Land Trust being reflected in the need for parks and open space and community gardens. I want to call out the specific implementation programs in the document that support urban agriculture and parks and open space. We feel like there's a considerable opportunity to support communities in their ability to access vacant land for the creation of new gardens and new parks. We feel like there's a lot of work that can be done around the funding and availability of funds for new parks and open space, and we support the department's work around Quimby reform in that regard. Again, we're very excited for this work and look forward to future meetings down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ava Post. I wanted to say that I strongly support the plan for a healthy Los Angeles. The plan takes necessary steps towards sustainability that Los Angeles direly needs. It sets a precedent for sustainable land use. Not only does it promote public health, but serves as a site as public education and engagement for health and sustainability. These gardens are proven to improve mental well-being, physical health, and pride in communities. There's a generational impact that promotes stewardship and forward-looking land use policies. And this is a chance for us to become leaders in just and sustainable food access. And the plan has a multifaceted approach that will only improve our great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Terracola Francisca de la Rosa.
Hi, my name's Tara Cola. I own Silver Lake Farms, which is an urban farm. I started it in 2004, and there was a little precedent set quite some time ago by the Planning Commission and Planning and Land Use Management Committee, because that you did a little thing that was huge, actually. It was called the Food and Flowers Freedom Act, and you passed it in 2010. And that set a precedence, I think, for allowing urban farming in the city of LA, and I'm here to represent how much good it does do for communities, for small businesses, bringing communities together, reminding children and parents about the importance of knowing where your food comes from and keeping things local. So I urge you to support this. It's really a good thing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Francesca De La Rosa and Rachel Bennett.
My name is Francesca. I'm here representing Works. We're a nonprofit housing developer that has incorporated an edible landscaping program in 6 of our housing communities, including expanding to the 7th one this May. I'm also here as chair of the Urban Ag Working Group of the Los Angeles Food Policy Council. And when we came together as a working group more than 3 years ago, we recognized that land use and zoning reform was going to be key to creating an equitable urban food growing across the city. We are excited that many of our urban ag policy recommendations and strategies can be found throughout this plan. Connecting residents with land in their own neighborhood to grow food is most effective for ensuring increased consumption of healthy, fresh food. We can and should be a city where every resident, regardless of their zip code, has the opportunity to harvest and distribute their own food. The depth and comprehensive approach of this plan is laying a foundation and a clear blueprint for how LA can become a leader in our country in urban agriculture. I want to thank the planning staff and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Francesca De La Rosa, Rachel Bennett.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Bennett, and I'm here on behalf of Prevention Institute. We're a nonprofit organization that works towards health and safety and equity in all communities. I'm also representing the Healthy, Equitable, Active Land Use Network, which is a network of 13 organizations across the city working to elevate health and equity in all land use decisions. I'm also a City of LA resident and a new mom. I have a 7-month-old daughter, so laying the groundwork for a healthier future for our city is pretty high on my personal agenda these days. And I just want to speak in support of this plan and really thank the Council and the Department of City Planning and the County Department of Public Health for their leadership on this. The plan elevates health and equity as pillars of the city of Los Angeles, and I think we're really going to be a leader in the state and in the nation and even globally. And I just want to emphasize the importance of tying this to implementation and funding, and I would respectfully request that the committee ask the Department of City Planning to report back on how the plan is being implemented and the community engaged over the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Bennett, Rob Baird. Is Rachel here? That was Rachel, right? Sorry about that. Rob Baird, Malcolm Carson.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Rob Baird with Community Health Councils. I'm a policy analyst on land use issues there at CHC, as well as the co-chair of the Healthy and Equitable Food Retail Working Group at the LA Food Policy Council. We just want to say that we're excited that the Healthy plan, LA has gotten to this point in the process, and encourage its movement in its current form to the City Council for a full vote. And we also reiterate that this is more than good policy, but it's a roadmap to creating a healthier and equitable city. And I just wanted to highlight a few implementation measures that we're eager to start working on as soon as the plan gets adopted or before. One is encouraging urban agriculture through property tax abatement and conversion of vacant land to community benefiting use. The opening of farmers markets in low-income communities with EBT access and streamlined permitting. Healthy vendors incentives for street vendors near schools, and sustained funding for neighborhood market conversions. Thank you.
Thank you. Malcolm Carson and Heather Davis.
Hi, thank you. My name is Malcolm Carson. I'm a Policy Director for Environmental Health at Community Health Councils. We're an organization that's dedicated to improving health in underserved communities, so we're very excited about the plan for Healthy Los Angeles, and we've been enthusiastically supporting it from the start. The health impacts of planning decisions are critical. In terms of the active living resources, nutrition resources, incompatible land uses. The health in all policies perspective sets Los Angeles on a path to a healthy and prosperous future. One thing I want to highlight for you is that the community input into this plan was broad and deep. There were multiple points of entry. There was great, accessible, multilingual staff, and there were some modern input planning technologies that were used. So we're looking forward to working with planning and other relevant departments to make sure that this plan is implemented as effectively and thoroughly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Heather Davis, Claire Fox.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Davis, and I'm the Open Space Policy Analyst with Community Health Councils. As Malcolm just said, Community Health Councils is really thrilled about this plan, and we really support it. And as the Open Space Policy Analyst, I'm excited about the programs that are implemented or that will be implemented with the plan, as LA is park poor, as we all know, and our low-income communities of color are all especially park poor. So a lot of the programs within the plan will support parks and park creation within our communities that need them the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire Fox and Malcolm Carson already spoke, right?
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Claire Fox. I'm with the LA Food Policy Council. As you can see, there's quite a few representatives from the Good Food Equity movement. And we have to thank planning staff for giving us so many opportunities to participate in this process. As has been said, there was a really wonderful community input process. Our leadership board of over 40 executive level food system leaders had a chance to hear a presentation from planning staff and weigh in and provide their analysis. Obviously, a number of our working groups, including the Urban Agriculture Working Group, the Healthy Food Retail Working Group, and Street Food Working Group, all also participate in the process. So we're very pleased with the recommendations. This is a groundbreaking document. We're excited to continue to be a part of bringing it to life moving forward. We're happy to see that healthy corner stores and street vending and urban agriculture are throughout the document. So we're looking forward to continuing our partnership with city planning on this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Douglas.
Good afternoon. As a nonprofit advocate and someone who grows food, I'm grateful for this opportunity to contribute testimony in support of the urban agriculture recommendations in the plan. According to the Department of Labor, the average American spends $6,600 annually on food in Los Angeles. If just 3% of those expenditures went to food grown here, it would inject $800 million into the local economy. At 5%, it would be more like $1.3 billion. Conversely, taxpayers give industrial, too-big-to-fail corporate ag over $20 billion annually for non-essential commodity crops. Globally, virtually all food is subsidized, but here in America, however, urban farming is a tragic exception. The Open Acres Project shows us that there's over 10,000 acres of available land here in the city. We have a prolific evidence of capacity to activate those vacant parcels because every community garden has a years-long wait list, and recently UCLA, USC, and LA Trade Tech have begun some form of urban farming program. The average American farmer is almost 60 years old, and we got to do something. Urban ag is a force multiplier. It mitigates blight, reduces reduces heat island effect, provides healthy food, incentivizes exercise. So I please consider robust, expedient implementation of all the plan's urban ag recommendations. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Punched a lot into there. Thank you very much. And I just wanted to state that this is some real, as was mentioned earlier, groundbreaking work, and the impacts on this should not be underestimated. I think it's going to create a lot of positive outcomes for the city of LA in the long term. And not only has it given us information so that we can base future decision making on for the future, but also some of the information that was put out, such as the maps and everything else, has really highlighted for us some of the work we have to do in parts of the city and policies that we should continue to improve. So just want to thank everybody who's been involved in this. I think this is some real groundbreaking work that the city should be proud of, and the department and all the stakeholders should be very proud of as we move forward with it. So thank you so much for that. And I do... that's fine. I was just wondering if we're interacting at all with the county in some of this work. I assume we are, since we, and how are we integrating our implementation of this with the county, who has historically primarily been responsible for health, although planning, the whole industry of planning was created as a health response in the early cities in the 19th century, but now the county has a majority of that responsibility here. So how are we integrating this with some of the work the county does?
Right. No, that we were very fortunate to actually be partnering with the county from the very beginning with this grant. They did, where the Department of Public Health actually provided us the funding for this, so they actually were part of our task force. They were actually going through a similar process on their end in terms of looking at how they can be embedding more kind of health-related activities in their own within the county at the same time. So we look forward to a partnership going forward. There's a number of programs in the plan that speak to the opportunities for joint collaboration.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? So we will move the report, and that we adopt the plan for a healthy LA as our health and wellness element of the general plan, and with no objection, there will be the action of this committee. Now, that needs council approval, correct? Or is this?
Yes, sir. This the council needs to adopt the resolution for the general plan amendment.
It might be worthwhile for my office to speak with the president's office to have a presentation in council when it gets to council. So if my staff could work with the planning department to make that possible, I think it's something worthwhile for the full council to listen to, and for the public to listen to at a broader level, so that they're aware of some of the work that's been going on here. So if we guys could work on that and get that. Thank you very much. So ordered. Thank you. Next and last item.
The last item, Councilman, is an appeal by the Westwood Homeowners Association. This is a CEQA appeal in regards to the approval, or an addition rather, of a second passenger elevator in CD5.
Okay, staff here on this item.
Good afternoon, Naomi Guth with the Department of City Planning. This appeal before you involves a historic building in Westwood Village and the addition of a passenger elevator to the exterior east facade of the building. The building is the former Bullock's Westwood department store, built in 1951. In the Westwood Village specific plan, it is identified as a locally significant historic resource. However, it is not yet a city historical monument, and it is not yet listed on the National Register of Historic Places, but it may be eligible for listing. There are two primary appeal points. First, that the exterior elevator will have a substantial adverse effect on a historic resource. Secondly, that a categorical exemption for the project is improper because the project will cause a substantial adverse effect. Regarding substantial adverse effect, we as staff do not see that there is a substantial adverse effect. This is a small addition, and it will not remove the ability of the structure to convey its historical significance. Regarding the appropriateness of the categorical exemption, The appellant contends that there's a reasonable possibility that the project may have a substantial adverse effect due to unusual circumstances. CEQA guidelines provide exceptions where a categorical exemption may not be applied, and unusual circumstances is one of these 6 exceptions. We have found, though, that there are no unusual circumstances regarding this project. There are numerous historic resources throughout the city. The city considers and approves additions and changes to historic resources on a regular basis across the city, including work related to historic cultural monuments, as well as contributor properties within more than 40 historic preservation overlay zones. So, in summary, staff recommends denying the appeal and upholding the categorical exemption determination for the project, as there's no evidence of substantial adverse effect and none of the exceptions are applicable. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with the appellant, and the applicant each have 5 minutes each, and now the other public speakers have 1 minute. So we'll start with Stephen Senan.
Thank you. Chairman Weezer and other members of the panel, thank you very much. Steve San, I am the chairman of the Westwood Community Council. I'm here appearing on behalf of myself, although I will tell you that our council has voted to support the conformance of this building in accordance with the Secretary of Interior standards, and I'm also here speaking for and on behalf of Westwood homeowners, though the President, Steve Resnick, will address you as well. Mr. Chairman, respectfully, under Section D3 of the city's threshold guidelines by which determinations are made whether a CEQA exemption is appropriate and whether an impact is significant, it states, and I quote, "The conversion, rehabilitation, or alteration of a significant resource which does not conform to the Secretary of Interior standards guidelines for rehabilitation shall be deemed to be a significant effect." This building has been identified since 1989, sir, in the Westwood Village Specific Plan as a cultural resource. It is treated under city ordinance as a historic resource. It follows and must require a certificate of appropriateness be granted. So the fact that it has not been formally named a monument is frankly irrelevant. It is treated by the city and has been since 1989. And as was stated, the building was found to be eligible for listing on the National Register. The only reason it was not listed in 1989 was the building at that time had not reached the age of 50 years. Of course, today it is now more than 50 years old and could be submitted today. One of the problems, sir, is prima facie, right on the face of the approval. If you read the approval on page 2 of 11 of the West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission determination, I want to read you just one sentence under section 4B rather. This is the verbatim words, and it says, "The exterior finish of the elevator tower shall be smooth trowel painted plaster, painted white to match the surrounding walls of the multi-tenant retail building." Painted to match. Why is that important? Because if you follow the Secretary of Interior standards, standard number 9 commands the following. It says, "New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, spatial relationships that characterize the property." Here's the key section of this sentence. It says, "The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the historic materials." So the command of the Secretary of Interior is that it be differentiated, and yet what your Planning Commission approved is that it has to match the existing. Right there is the problem. It's as simple as that. And the request we're making, sir, and I hope this is noted, we support the building of this elevator. This elevator is necessary. We support the size, the shape, the dimensions, the location. We are not asking for any change to it other than the exterior cladding on the upper 2 levels, which are the levels that are visible from the public on the 2nd and 3rd floors. We don't even care what the cladding looks like on the first 2 levels, which are contained within a parking garage. So our request is so narrow. Leave the elevator, build it exactly the size, shape, and dimensions, but simply reclad the upper 2 levels so they contrast, so they follow what the Secretary of Interior standards, that it says the new work shall be differentiated. And what your Planning Commission ordered is that rather than be differentiated, that it be matched exactly. Why does this matter? Because the Secretary of Interior standards caution against what they call a false sense of history. We're not supposed to pretend like Mr. Welton Beckett put this elevator in 1951. He didn't. And so since we're adding it today in 2015, that's fine. But it should be done in a way that a person could look and say, here's the original, here's the addition. If you were to add to City Hall, for example, you would not want to use this style of architecture. You would use materials that contrast. So again, our request is exceedingly narrow. We've conveyed this to the applicant. All we are asking for is that the Secretary of Interior standards be followed by recladding the upper two levels in a steel and glass material. And I note that the Ralph's Market, which just opened 9 months ago at Ventura and Hazeltine, has exactly this type of glass and steel elevator. So they showed us that they know how to do it. They did it 9 months ago at one of their newest stores. That is the focus of our request. The granting of this categorical exemption was in error, and I note that the city filed the notice after we noticed our objection. That filing was in error. I note that there was a memo that was filed, I believe, just on Thursday, dated the 19th of March. It enunciates a whole list of reasons why they think our claim is invalid. But I note, sir, that all these arguments do not appear in the record. None of these arguments that they made were filed with the county. So all of these arguments that they now use ex post facto as reasons why this is wrong are completely invalid, because none of it was considered by the decision maker and none of it was in the record. So we respectfully request that you grant this appeal. Let us work with planning staff. Let us work with the applicant for this very modest request to just reclad the top two levels in steel and glass, and the issue goes away. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we hear from the applicant, Scott Trafford.
Trafford. I'm an asset manager with TI Craft for the landlord of the building. So there's a couple of things. First, it's a challenge building in that it was one time occupied by single user, Bullock's Wilshire and Bullock's Chain, and it was converted to multi-tenant building. So you had to take the interior vertical transportation, move it to the exterior. And in doing so, it wasn't an easy solution to try and find for. But what happened was, there's a bit of a challenge history here. So we went and applied for and received a permit to build this exterior elevator. Asked the city, do we need to go through DRB? And the answer was no. So we got our permit in May of 2014. It started work in 2014, in May. In June, the community went to the city and said that there was an issue that they were concerned about the elevator. So the city issued us a stop work order. We immediately stopped work on the project, met with the DRB 3 times. Steve Sand and his parties had 3 months and 3 different meetings on a local level to address any concerns he had about design, structure, features, anything they wanted. Unanimously, the DRB voted 4-0 on our favor to go forward with our design. In all, we've had all these meetings. The DRB reviewed the design, heard all comments, including glass. They wanted a tower on the top. And all in, the DRB recommended unanimous approval that included a certificate of appropriateness precisely because this building is a designated cultural resource. Both the planning director and the APC upheld the recommendation of the DRB to approve the elevator as approved today in the design. In an August 2014 letter to Westwood DRB, the LA Conservancy supports the elevator as long as the elevator shaft, in quotes in the letter, features a design that does not draw undue attention away from the historic building. The paint color scheme using cream matching the uppermost level. Two criteria that the LA Conservancy asked for. Lower the tower as much as you can. We lowered it because there's some mechanical on the top. And match the color. This is from the LA Conservancy, historical group, very well recognized in this community. There's nothing about cladding it, something else. We had a very robust conversation about that issue. And the LA Conservancy said, no, that's not the opportunity. The opportunity is keep it the same color, plaster conditions. We met that condition. Just for a visual, if you haven't seen it here. So this is the building it is today. The plans are approved today. Existing elevator here, the new elevator over here. Okay, you have a ramp that goes up to the second level, and it's half of it is considered covered up by this ramp. This is what was approved. by the city and approved by the LA Conservancy. The city's historic preservation architect was at the DRB meeting. When we made the recommendations, he gave them his expert opinion on the elevator meets the Secretary of Interior standards. He participated in the findings for the certificate of appropriateness. The APC discussed this at length, confirmed these findings, and denied Mr. Sand's appeal at the APC. In fact, at least 4 qualified and credentialed historic architects now have weighed in on this, and not one has a concern about the elevator meeting the Secretary of Standards, except Mr. Sand. This appeal today is an attempt to string this out even longer and belabor those issues that have been reviewed and approved by the DRB, the Planning Department, and the APC. We urge you to deny this appeal. Our design team, including our historic architect, are here today. They filled out speaker cords. If you have any questions, you can sort of address that to them. At this point, we've been delayed in this project for over 8 months, and it would be encouraging if you could deny the appeal so we can keep forward.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Not now. Thank you very much. Brian Leroy. Richard Shulman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping I could use the rest of Scott's time. I am legal counsel for the applicant, Brian Leroy, Manette, Phelps & Phillips, representing the property.
Yeah. How much time was left? Okay, you could have 2 minutes. Sir.
Okay, thank you. Just in case I run out of time, I've got a letter for the record, but I can summarize it real quickly. First, as you know, this is a statutory CEQA appeal, which means it is limited to the CEQA determination only and not the other approvals by the Area Planning Commission. The Area Planning Commission approved the design review, the project permit compliance, and importantly, the certificate of appropriateness. Those determinations are final and they're not part of this appeal. Mr. Sand claims that the elevator might cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of a historic resource, but what Mr. Sand did not tell you is that under the state CEQA guidelines, a project that follows the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation is presumed to be less than a significant impact on the historic resource. The APC, with the Office of Historic Resources, found that this elevator project meets the Secretary's standards, all 10 of them, as part of the certificate of appropriateness, and Mr. Sand's opportunity to challenge or appeal those findings is over. The Planning Department has reaffirmed those findings in its latest memo for this appeal, where they find that the project meets multiple categories of CEQA exemptions and that none of the exceptions to the exemptions apply. In particular, the city confirms that the project will not cause a substantial adverse change in the significance of the building as a historic resource, in part because it meets the 10 Secretary standards, including the fact that the addition is sufficiently differentiated from the old, but still compatible with the historic materials in order to protect the integrity of the structure. Mr. Sand wants you to believe that the elevator has to be radically differentiated from the rest of the building, and that's not true. Standard number 9 requires the new work to be differentiated yet compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features of the building. And as we mentioned earlier, the August 20 letter from the Los Angeles Conservancy to the Design Review Board states that the elevator project would comply with the Secretary's standards as long as it features a design that does not draw undue attention away from the historic building, such as a glass elevator, and the paint color scheme uses cream to match the uppermost level. We urge you to deny the appeal.
Thank you. Richard, I don't have the last name here.
Schulman, S-C-H-U-L-M-A-N. Good afternoon. I'm an attorney for Target. I'm just here to show our support for the project. Mr. Trafford and Mr. Leroy, our opposition to the appeal. Here if you have any questions, but I'm really just here to support what Mr. Trafford and Mr. Leroy said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have here Susan LaSalle and Jane Hoodston. Says defer time to applicant. We do not defer time. You could either have 1 minute or... Okay, thank you. Okay, Stephen Resnick, Jessica Dobney.
Good afternoon, Council Member. Stephen Resnick. I'm president of the Westwood Homeowners Association. We're the largest HOA in Westwood, representing approximately 2,500 residents. And I'm also secretary of the Westwood Neighborhood Council. And I'm here simply to urge you to grant our appeal, and supported also by the Westwood Neighborhood Council. They passed a resolution, and to reject the categorical exemption that was erroneously granted. We support, as Mr. Sand said, we support the elevator. We've never done anything else but that. But we're just asking for the one change on the upper two visible floors to reclad that part of the elevator. We believe strongly in the historical significance of this building, and we're trying hard in the community to preserve historical buildings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jessica Dabney, Roxanne Stern.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am here on behalf of the project and urge you to deny the appeal. I am a commercial property owner, and I own a building a half a block away from where the TIAA craft property is located. I am also the chair of the board of the Westwood Village Business Improvement District. I'm not here on behalf of the Business Improvement District, but I mention that so that you understand my zeal to improve the area of Westwood Village. I'm in support of this project because I think it is good for the building, and it will bring more people to the building and to the retailers within the building, which can only be good for my building, which is half a block away, and Westwood Village in general. It is important that the business community be able to rely on the city process. TIAA Craft went through the process. They've been through a number of hearings, and I urge this group to deny the appeal and allow this good project to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Roxanne Stern, Barbara Broidy.
I'm Roxanne Stern. I'm a resident of Westwood.
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Yes, thank you.
Roxanne Stern. I'm a resident of Westwood. I support the elevator as it has been presented. The parties who are opposed have gone through all the channels and have been rebuffed. It's time to move on. This is a very subjective thing in that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and it's been decided that the beauty is as fine as is, and we need to go forward. I just will tell you that the Rouse now has one dinky little elevator, and because it's been slowed down, everybody going those 2 floors is trapped in that little elevator. It's very unpleasant, and I would like to see this get finished now and have the elevator as is. We need it desperately. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Broidy.
Barbara Broidy, Westwood, south of Santa Monica Boulevard homeowners. We're here to support our neighbors to the north. The Bullock's building, it's been, I don't know how many years since Bullock's went out of business, but everyone thinks of it as Bullock's, and it is a local landmark for all of us. We're just concerned about Section 9 on the standards for rehabilitation. The new work will be differentiated from the old. We're not lawyers and we're not architects, but we think it's kind of fake architecture and it's meant to blend in. And I'm concerned that if this is done in this manner and an action in the future to landmark it will take place, that this could be a barrier to that process. So we would like to retain the building. The speakers who talk about the need for the elevator are absolutely right. The building is crying out for an elevator, but it isn't necessarily crying for stucco. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Bayless, Council District 5.
Good afternoon again, Councilmember Sean Bayless, Planning and Land Use Guy for Councilmember Paul Koretz. This has been a bit of a long and somewhat sad saga. The property owner was moving forward with improvements as approved by the City of Los Angeles. There was concern brought up by the community that it should go through the Design Review Board, and so they did. They went 3 times. I was a lucky participant at the Design Review Board when this one item took 4 hours and 45 minutes. And at the end of that, those 4 architects all agreed to approve this portion of the project and to allow it to go forward. And at that hearing, several of the folks that were in opposition said, we're fine with that. We won't oppose. They then opposed. So it was appealed, and then we went to the Area Planning Commission, where the same group of folks got to enjoy another couple hours in front of that board, and that board approved the project. So before us today is the only thing that can be appealed, and that's the CEQA. The only thing before us is the categorical exemption, and no aspect of the design is before us today. All of that has been hashed out by numerous architects and board members and commissioners, and everyone has agreed wholeheartedly. We can certainly agree to disagree on the way something looks, but a lot of folks have already agreed, they've already approved it. So today is the CEQA. Our office agrees with the city attorney and the planning department that the categorical exemption is appropriate, and we would ask that you deny the appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, staff, come up, please. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that this is a challenge to CEQA on the category exemption, but the basis that it uses are on design or on this design. So, what is your take on the issues that were raised with respect to the Secretary's description of the design versus what was adopted by and recommended by the local planning agency? So how do you reconcile some of the appellant's arguments with the process that's taking place here today?
Naomi Guth, Department of City Planning. As was described by Sean Bayless with Council District 5, there were several meetings. These alternative design ideas were presented at the time, and it was well vetted, the various options for the design of the elevator and the elevator tower that will sit on the roof of the building. And our Office of Historic Resources also looked at this very closely, and it is our recommendation that this does meet that standard, number 9. We have Ken Bernstein with our Office of Historic Resources to provide more detail on how such determinations are made regarding satisfying the 10 Secretary of the Interior standards.
Yes.
Yes, Councilman, again, Ken Bernstein with the Office of Historic Resources for the Department of City Planning. Our office was very involved with this project, both myself and Lambert Giesinger, our preservation architect. Initially, when we began reviewing this project, we did have concerns that some of the work could potentially impact a significant historic resource, and we do agree with the appellant's argument, of course, that the Bullocks building is a significant resource and eligible for historic designation, significant in the Westwood Village specific plan. That said, we did internally, were among those who did ensure that this project was routed through the design review board process, and as you heard, there were multiple hearings before that design review board. With respect to the Secretary of the Interior standards, and specifically standard number 9, the standards really try to walk a fine line with respect to how additions to historic buildings are reviewed. And on the one hand, the standards stipulate that additions should be compatible with the historic building, and on the other hand, that they should be differentiated. Typically, the way differentiation is viewed does not need to necessarily be a radical departure from the design of the historic building, but a subtle differentiation. As our office reviewed this project, we did believe that that standard was satisfied in this case. The new addition is a vertical element in what is otherwise a very horizontally oriented mid-century modern structure. So just by virtue of that orientation, there is already differentiation that is occurring. And I think our office's concern was that if the cladding were too significantly differentiated on that vertical elevator addition, you would not be walking that fine line. It would be tilted too far toward differentiation and really calling visual attention to the new addition. We do believe that the addition, while parties can disagree about it from a design standpoint, we do believe it does satisfy the Secretary of the Interior standards, and therefore there is not a CEQA impact, which is the issue before you today. And regardless, even perhaps if one stipulated that perhaps this one standard were not met. The test under CEQA is whether the proposed project materially impairs the significance of the historic resource. And again, from our review and working with the staff reviewing this project, we do not believe that the addition of the elevator tower in any way materially impairs the continued significance of the Bullocks building for continued eligibility as a historic resource. And again, we do believe the standards were met, but again, even if one stipulates they do not, it does not materially impact the continued historic eligibility of the structure.
And the appellant mentioned something about a finding that was made that it should match the existing as opposed to differentiate. I didn't quite follow that argument, but
well, there was language that the paint should match the existing. Again, we do not believe that means that the entire addition is blending seamlessly in. Again, and our office is often among the first on many of our HPOZs to say, for example, that we don't want to see kind of a seamless addition. But again, we believe in part because of the vertical orientation of the addition compared to the horizontal orientation of the existing building, this successfully walks that line between differentiation and compatibility.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So there is no quorum at today's meeting. We will have this as a report to the chair to full council to deny the appeal in accordance with the recommendation from the planning department and the city attorney's office. And for the appellants, you have another opportunity at full council to make your claim and state your case, but the recommendation from the chair to the full council is to deny the appeal, and we'll go from there. Okay. A report from the chair to full council. Any other matters on the agenda?
Just public comment.
Public comment. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.